podcast. We are delighted that you have been able to tune in and join us today. Today's very special broadcast is in partnership with Into Film, who will be introduced very shortly, and we're excited to hear more about them and the plan for today's session. So this session will last for around about 45 minutes to an hour, more towards the hour as we are a panel event today, and it will include an interview with our panelists before we later move on to a student Q&A. Questions for our speakers can be submitted to us live via our Q&A function, which you'll find just underneath the stream on your screens, and depending what device you're using, you might have to scroll down just a little bit to be able to see this. It's open now and it will remain open through the rest of the session, so please do submit as many questions as you like in response to anything that's said today, as we do love to hear from you. Do keep an eye out on that box, as a little bit later on towards the end of the session, a feedback poll will appear as well, and that's a chance for you to give us feedback on how you found today's session. And as always, it will all be shared with our speakers. Now, if you find yourself to experience any sort of technical issue, please do let us know via that Q&A box, and one of our moderators will be on hand to help where we can. Now, we're very, very excited to move on to the main event. So here to tell us a little bit about Into Film and a little bit about our speakers is Ava. So everybody, please welcome Ava from Into Film.
Hi, Charlie. Can you hear me okay? Oh, gosh.
Yeah, we're
Sorry,
here.
everyone. So you can, okay. I've been on the call for 20 minutes and now the connection's gone. But as long as you can hear me, that's all good. So hello, everybody, and welcome. So my name is Eva from Into Film. So we are the UK's leading charity for film and education in the community. We provide screen industry careers information and advice, support young filmmakers, and bring the power of the moving image into storytelling, into the classroom, into teaching. So we are funded by the British Film Institute via the National Lottery to demystify the screen industries for young people in schools and colleges. So events like this one are about ensuring you get to learn more about what it's like to work in the screen industries, or actually working in those industries. So by this, we hope you'll feel more informed and maybe even inspired to explore a career in the screen industries for yourself. So that brings me to today's broadcast, which is all about shining a spotlight on inclusion and neurodiversity in film and TV. So from storyboarding to on-set experiences, storytelling, we'll explore how the screen industries are evolving to embrace different ways of thinking, working, and creating. We'll be exploring the strengths that thinking differently can bring to creative work, advice from these experts from their experiences, and exploring different areas within inclusion and diversity in the industry. So today's panelists, we will hear from Jess Gardner. So Jess is an experienced disabled Welsh producer and access coordinator who has worked across high-end TV, feature films, drama, feature documentaries, short form and branded content, and commercials, her own production company, Divergence Pictures, which focuses on producing content by and about underrepresented individuals and telling stories with authenticity. Next, we'll have Jack Twell. So Jack is an independent freelance film producer and film teacher based in Bristol. Alongside his production work, Jack teaches filmmaking to young people, helping young people explore their creativity and gain confidence through storytelling. He's passionate about making film accessible and enjoyable for all, regardless of experience. And then next we have Sarah Lee, who is the founder of Inclusivity Films, a passionate advocate for inclusion and authenticity in film. Sarah founded Inclusivity Films, a company that showcases deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent talent on and off the screen. She was supported in 2022 by the Creative UK BFI and was a Women in Film and Television UK mentee for 2023. She has also co-founded Inclusive Talent, an agency that forefronts underrepresented actors. And then last but not least, we have Rico Johnson Sinclair. So Rico has extensive experience in the industry as an inclusion, equity and diversity specialist. Currently, they are the director of Crew HQ, and Crew HQ is a skills and training centre that aims to progress the industry and create a sustainable and equitable pipeline into below the line roles in production. So we're really looking forward to today's panel. And finally, before we jump in, if you would like to learn more about careers in the screen, we will share some links in the chat where you and your teachers or careers advisors can find out more. So we'll share those on later. So thank you very much. Over to Charlie.
Thank you, Ava. Great. What a lovely introduction. So thank you. And yeah, we will be sharing lots of resources and things from Interfil later on. Okay, so now let's start with our first speaker, who's going to come and introduce themselves a little bit before we get into our panel. So everybody, please welcome Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Charlie, and thank you, Eva. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Lee. I am a writer-director, and I am the founder of Inclusivity Films. I identify as disabled neurodivergent. I'm autistic of ADHD. Very passionate about including others in my work authentically, where disability is part of the plot, but also where disability isn't part of the plot, and we're just represented anyway on and off screen.
Thank you. It's great to hear a little bit about you, just so we can sort of put a voice and a story to your name as we get in. Is there anything else you would like to add before, or are you happy?
Did you want to know about the career journey now? Is that part?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. So I've been in the industry for 20 years this year. Actually, one of my first big stories was the anniversary that happened yesterday. Yesterday. And so I started in TV news. I worked at CNN, Sky News, 5 News, and then realised that it very much was an environment that I couldn't thrive in, and I did struggle with it. So I gave it all up to be an actor for 15 years. So I come from an acting background, which has really enhanced my directing skills. Now I am a writer-director, and I've had loads of side jobs in between as well, because I'm from a working class background. I live in social housing, and it's not always easy to just have the one freelance career. So I've had many side jobs, including lots of bar work, caring roles, and I worked for President Obama's second administration. So there's a different one.
Yeah, wow, that's like a party tip, isn't it? What do they say, unique fact or something?
Yeah, I think so. It's a good one.
A little factoid. Okay, excited to hear more from you later. Thank you for telling us about your career journey and what you do. So really exciting. Thank you. All right, up next then is Rico. Welcome, Rico.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
So same again, could you tell us what it is you do now and your career journey?
Absolutely. So I'm currently the Director of Skills and Training at Warner Brothers Discovery. But what that actually means in practice is that I'm the director of this wonderful thing called Crew HQ, which is a skills and training center that works in 3 main categories. Our first one is early entrance. So we have a trainee program that takes between 20 and 40 people have never worked in film before, a year, and we give them a year's worth of experience on our productions. So they've worked on House of the Dragon, Barbie, Wonka, some really big productions as their first production. We have our 7-Up program, which is for people that have experienced significant barriers to entry and advancement in the industry. We also have our careers days where we celebrate our content with some breakdowns of the below the line departments that exist in the content. So we did one for Mickey 17 earlier this year. We've got another one coming up for the next Conjuring film. And then we have a podcast called Out of Frame, which kind of demystifies those below the line roles. So for those of you that don't know, above the line is writer, director, producer, on-screen talent and stunts. Everything else is below the line. So costume, lighting, sound, camera, all of those departments are below the line. We also do when it's not just about the entry level roles, it's also about mid-level and HODs as well, because what we're trying to do is build the life cycle of production within a studio function. But I haven't always done this. I have had a really varied career in film. I started out as a film programmer because there wasn't a lot of production in Birmingham. So I used to go and watch films before the general release and decide what festivals and cinemas they used to go at. So that's the role of a film programmer, watching loads of films, which sounds glorious, but when you're watching like close to 1,000 films a year, it can be pretty contentious, and it also ruins your memory because you're like, oh no, I've seen this film, but I don't remember anything about it. So I did that for 5 years, always trying to find a way to break into production. Ended up getting a few opportunities as a BFI funded, as a producer on a BFI funded shorts. Then had my first opportunity as a writer director on a BFI funded short. But then realised through that process the amount of compromise it was in this industry. To tell stories authentically when you're from historically marginalized backgrounds. I identify as disabled, Black, queer, and working class, and it was really difficult to tell my story of vulnerability in a kind of in an industry that currently is about productivity over the space to play, learn, and understand your craft. So instead, I said that I wanted to change the industry before I invested my creativity in it, and took a role as a race equality lead at the British Film Institute, and the rest is history. And now I'm here today.
Well, we're excited to have you and to learn more about your thoughts a little bit later on our panel. So thank you for the introduction. All right, our next speaker to introduce themselves is Jess. Everybody, welcome Jess. Again, welcome. Hopefully you're happy to be here today. Could you tell us a little bit about your career journey and what your current role is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jess. I'm from South Wales, originally from, again, a working class family. So it's actually really awesome to see so much representation on this panel of people from a range of backgrounds that are coming in to the screen industries. So I have been very fortunate that my career has been very diverse, but also most recently been quite incredible. I most recently produced the latest series of Doctor Who, was one of the producers, which is kind of phenomenal. And I got to work in my hometown of Cardiff, which is also very rare in this industry. You move around a lot for different jobs all the time. My career, I've done this now for 15 years. So my career started working in promos, which is probably something that's quite alien to quite a lot of young people now, since linear TV is very different. But promos is kind of, advertising for the channel itself, for shows coming up on channels. And that's where I got my start. And then I moved into working in a lot of sport. Ironically, I am not an excellent sportswoman. And I had the privilege of working on big sport documentaries, working for the likes of Red Bull, as well as working in commercials, and then eventually found myself, I always wanted to work in drama and scripted. I just didn't know how to get there. So I ended up going across during COVID, actually, working as a production manager in scripted TV, which was absolutely phenomenal. And from there, I've been able to sort of understand that side of the industry more, as well as the business. And now I also run my own production company, which is very much dedicated to supporting diverse voices in the industry, be that from working class background, be that female, be that of a different race or ethnicity, or being deaf, disabled, or neurodivergent. And most recently trained as an access coordinator and consultant, because I have hidden disabilities, and I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 30. So I think it's very much about creating a more safe space within the industry by the work that I do. The reason why I did that was so that I could also lead from the top. I think it's very important to have leadership from the top that feels very much inclusive, sort of echoing what Rico was saying there.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, a really lovely introduction, and really excited for you to be a part of the panel, so thank you. Again, we will see you shortly. All right, and again, our final panelist to introduce themselves then is Jack. So everyone, welcome, Jack.
Hi everyone, thank you Charlie, thank you Eva. Very happy to be here. So yeah, I'm Jack. I'm a freelance filmmaker based in Bristol, mainly focusing on production and writing, and I work very specifically with independent, low budget films. And I have the great privilege of also being a filmmaking teacher for after school club and summer camps, and get to teach young people all about filmmaking and how exciting and inclusive and accessible it is to people. I'm still relatively new to the industry. I only discovered at 23 that it was possible to become a filmmaker, because growing up I was told it just wasn't something that's open, told that the film industry is unreachable, no one could be a filmmaker. And until I originally came to Bristol to be a chef because that's what I was trained in originally. And then found that in Bristol there were a lot of universities that accept anyone to learn about filmmaking, and then did a 3-year degree in which I learned all about filmmaking and really enjoyed myself, and then realized that actually it is possible to become a filmmaker. And ever since I've graduated 3 years ago, I've had the pleasure of working with many different people, learning lots of new skills. And right now I work with a little company called Barry Films. We're a collective of freelance filmmakers. We make our own films, but we also reach out to other people who are struggling to get into the film industry, and we kind of destroy the myth that you need money to make films. And so we kind of tackle that and just show everyone that it's possible that you can make films with no money. And also on the side, like I say, I have the pleasure of teaching kids filmmaking, which is really a great honor and privilege.
So sorry. It always happens now and again, doesn't it, where someone forgets to unmute themselves. I'm polite so you don't get heard, and then that happens. I was just saying, it's so great to work with young people, and it's what I love to do here, and I'm sure you do as well, seeing the sort of future people that will become part of our future workforce, and getting them excited about, like working in the screen industries must be really lovely.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, I'm going to bring back all our panelists now, and we're going to start moving through our panel questions. So welcome back, everybody. Hello. Great. So hopefully we won't forget to unmute and remute ourselves, but if it happens, doesn't matter. It always happens. I do this a couple of times a week and I still forget. So great. Our first question then is, how can different ways of thinking be a strength when you're specifically focused around creative work? Quite a wide question to think about. Does anybody have an answer that they would like to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think diversity of thought is really important. So I think pretty much everybody, I think this is the reality, pretty much everybody thinks differently. There isn't one way. We're not a monolith as a race, or as humans. Everybody thinks differently. And I think it's difficult when people say, oh, you think differently. Yes, there are, when you are neurodivergent, you absolutely do think differently to perhaps a general trend of how thought happens, but everybody thinks differently because of their personal experiences, their background, their lifestyles, their gender. All of those things impact how you think. It's not just, whether you're neurodiverse or not. And so I think diversity of thought is key. I think having a collective of different people all together in rooms is the most important thing. And I think all of us in this room would probably agree that having leadership from the top that is very, very diverse is probably what we're all aspiring to have. And that is the key. But I think the reason why it's really beneficial actually is that so many people can be seeing something as perhaps a problem, and you might be seeing it as a solution because you are seeing it differently. I always used to say, I had a lecturer at university who said to me, people always say to think outside the box, but for you, Jess, there is no box. You don't even start with that as a starting point. This was before I was even diagnosed. I wasn't really aware that that's how I approached things. But it meant that I was coming from perhaps the complete opposite of a starting point for somebody else. Just when looking at something, it doesn't need to even be a problem, but it means that you might be able to see a solution to something before even anyone else has seen that there might be a problem. And I think that is the most amazing thing, is having different brains collaborate on something can really turn something from good to fantastic really quite quickly.
Yeah, it's different point of view is always going to be something special, right? We don't want everyone to be the same, particularly when you're being creative. Anybody have anything else to add? Yep, everybody. So we'll start with Sarah, and then we'll walk round anti-clockwise.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with what Jess was saying. It has to start from the top. We really need more authentic voices at the top. I think how it's helped my creativity, like being neurodivergent, and I guess particularly the ADHD part of my brain, is I have, in some ways it's good, some ways it can be a bit tricky, but I have 100 ideas every single day. So I'm not short of ideas, and my imagination is wild, and I'm just constantly thinking of new things. When writing scripts, it can be a bit tricky because I can get 30 pages in and then start a new one and just say, oh, I've got this idea now. But I think it's great. And also what Jess said about the solutions and just thinking on your feet. I think there's, the impulsivity thing can help sometimes too. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Rico, next.
I think it's really important to reflect on the fact that we're in an industry of perspectives. Storytelling is about perspectives, and so thinking differently it's not just a kind of something that is positive. It's also an imperative. It's kind of a necessity. People don't want to see stories told in the same way that reflect the same experiences. I definitely feel like I love film, and my whole career has been shaped around the idea that film has a power to change hearts and minds. And despite how some areas of the film are predominantly a business, I think ultimately we are shaping the industry to be about storytelling. It has to be about storytelling first. And in order for us to tell compelling stories that are reflective of society, we have to have a difference in thought. So I think it's an imperative.
Yeah, I completely agree, because it brings originality to filmmaking, which everyone's always looking for new ideas, particularly original ideas, but not just in terms of filmmaking. It's also when you think differently to problem solving, because filmmaking is also problem solving, and it can bring great elements to team building as well.
Yeah, definitely. Which is great when you think, being a student, if you are diagnosed or struggling or thinking you might have that sort of, it's welcomed within an industry, and you don't have to worry about that, because it definitely can be difficult for young people worrying. So it's nice to get some voices that tell us that it's going to be okay, and there's definitely space, and in sometimes it's wanted as well. So yeah. Our next question then is around qualifications, which is always a big question when you're looking at your career. So, do you have to have a formal qualification when you're working in the screen sector, or can you work in the screen sector without it? All right, start with Rico then. Maybe we'll go this way around.
I would say absolutely not. You don't need a qualification. I think fundamentally certification isn't seen the same way in our industry. Even if you go and do a degree and rock up to set one day and say, look, I have a degree in kind of and VFX supervision, it's not necessarily going to give you a job in VFX supervision. I think that when you're on production, especially on the studio side, they want to see someone that's had those experiences. And as someone that went to university and studied production for live events and TV and really experienced the industry, I don't think I learned anything on that course that allowed me to be prepared for my first day on set. And I think my experiences largely were ones of kind of frustration, because I obviously spent student loan and spent 3 years in education just to kind of end up in the same position that I was when I first started university. So I would say a lot of programs that I see, we used to do this, but we got rid of it. A lot of programs that I see do require kind of a GCSE level for maths and English at level C or above, or 4 or above. But I think more and more those kind of parameters are starting to be dissolved in some of the early entry programs, because it can be an incredible barrier for some people. And I think as long as you are really dedicated to your kind of work, as long as you're a hard worker, and as long as you are yourself, expressively yourself, I think that you will find some success in this industry. I hope, anyway.
Yeah, those skills and developing those skills, whether that's in the education or out, is really helpful, is working on being dedicated. I feel like hardworking, you've got to be hardworking in the screen industries. I'm sure you're all very hardworking people to have made it. Who would like to go next? Jack, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, you definitely don't need a degree. I mean, again, speaking from experience, people were just saying generally, you can't get the film industry. There's no point in trying. And then when I came to Bristol, I thought, oh no, I could go to university actually. Oh no, I could. And then once I got my degree, I then thought, oh, that's it. But actually, no, I've found out that when talking about jobs or talking to other people who make films, no one even asks, barely. They don't ask if you've got a qualification. They just want to know if you're hardworking, if you're committed, and if you want to make films. And again, although university could teach you a lot of skills, which it definitely taught me, I'm very grateful for it. I wouldn't change a thing. But equally, I would still make the same choices I make now, where I'm just making films and helping other people make films without any money, because it's just you don't need any money or qualification to make a film. You just need the desire and the passion and the hard work, and you can do it. And people who can help you do it. And yeah, that's it.
Like it. Jess or Sarah, do you have anything else to add to our
so I did go to university. I was lucky that I had financial support to go, and not everyone, I mean, it's a very different landscape out there to afford to go to university now. And I would say that, like Rico and Jack, you absolutely do not need that formal qualification to get yourself into it. I would say there is a benefit once you are in and you've decided which route you would like or to pursue. There is a benefit in seeking further advancement through different certifications, through different, and we can probably talk about this later, about different places you can go to for some of that additional training. You know, if you think about certain roles within the industry, you might need a certain qualification if you want to work in the lighting department, for example, and get that electrical qualification. But that doesn't require you originally to go to a university to do that. Most of the entry points that you look at don't require anything of that level to start in them. I think the benefit that happens quite a lot when you go to somewhere like university or a college is finding people that have a similar passion to you. And I think for me, that is actually quite key, is, you know, like Jack, if you are finding others that are passionate about collaborating and creating something that you can build and learn from each other, that is far more valuable. And I think it's actually finding those people. So sometimes you do find those when you go to a college or a university, because you're kind of all put there together. So, but that's not necessarily the case. You might all just know each other as friends and you might all be passionate. That's happened to quite a lot of people I know and have gone on to be, you know, professional editors, professional camera people, because they started young and started collaborating together. So I think it's about how you find those people that also will benefit you in terms of pushing you on and having that ambition to learn and grow and develop. So I think actually that's far more important.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that community is always difficult to find on your own and can be scary to find on your own sometimes. Last but not least for this question.
Yeah, just echoing what everyone else said. I was lucky I won a scholarship to do TV journalism. I think one of the biggest things, the takeaway for me, was learning editing, which I only really use for social media, and all you kids can do that anyway. So there you go. But I think as a storyteller, that's always been within me, and that would have come out in any way. Before I go on any scenario, even like coming here today, I play things out visually, what it's going to be like. So I feel like I'm telling a film in my head always. And then that translates to writing it on paper and then obviously seeing it come to life in film. So I do feel that, yeah, that if we speak later about places like Screen Skills and places you can get certificates for free and all of that stuff is great. But obviously, I don't want to say don't go to university if it's something that is in your plans, because that it is a great experience too. But it's just not a necessity.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice thing to finish on. Like, if that's something that you want to do, go, experience, network, start developing the skills. Know that working in the screen industries will not be like university, and you might need to learn new skills on set that you didn't learn in education. I'm sure you're still learning information within that environment that is useful. So yeah, I like that sort of positives and negatives to both. Our next question then is, what advice would you give to a student that might be watching, who's really creative but worried about not fitting in? We'll start with Jack.
I just like to start by saying that I think I'm right in saying that we're always worried about not fitting in, not just when it comes to filmmaking, but anything we ever do in life. It's just probably one of the most common things as humans. We're all worried about not fitting in. And I would say the most important thing is to, when you get that feeling, listen to it. First of all, listen to it. Don't suppress it, because suppressing it, I found, only makes you more worried. Whereas if you let that part of your brain speak, let it out, and then still go for it. It's something I've found that's really useful, is that every time you worry about not fitting in, and it still happens to me a lot, I let myself express it, let myself feel it, and then I still go for it, because then ultimately it works out.
Yeah, sounds like that sort of comfort zone thing, isn't it? Like, the more you put yourself out of your comfort zone, the wider your comfort zone will grow. So be wary of it, but still, if you can, go for it. Anyone else like to add anything to this point? Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think one of the things that I never ever thought I fitted in. I was always the slight oddball in school, in university, always the one that, went and got a job in sports and was useless at sports. Like, I don't necessarily always fit in where I am. What I would say is, sometimes it's what Jack was saying about sort of listen to it. Sometimes you also need to articulate it to somebody else. So I remember when I was so anxious that people didn't like me, and I remember blurting it out to a group of people. Everyone was like, why do you even think that? That in their head, that was not even a thing. It was something I had basically invented through my own anxieties. And I think, as Jack said, it's a very human thing that we do, that we think we're not going to fit in, and we focus perhaps on our quirks or our negatives, and we can make those huge, but to other people, they probably are minuscule, or they haven't even noticed them. And I think actually fitting in, I would say, from being in the industry, most of us probably feel most of the time in the creative industries that we don't fit in, because that's who we are. We're creative. We're always doing something different. We also don't necessarily want to be like everybody else and fit in. I think that's the great thing. We all are so individual and have such a rich ideas, rich personalities. And I think that's also amazing. When you go and work on a film set, on a TV set, in any genre or format, actually there are so many different people that you meet all of the time. I met a sound man who was originally just someone who was passionate about diving, and now he's a sound man in drama, but he spent the first 30 years of his life just diving off boats in Europe and then helped a team do some underwater filming, and then became a sound person. Now he does it in drama. His world has totally transformed and done so many different things. He probably never thought he would fit in, because he used to just live off boats in the Mediterranean. So I would say there is no norm in our industry, and I think that is the true beauty of it. There is no one way of doing anything or getting to a certain point. There are so many different avenues.
Yeah, and I also like that story there, or anecdote, because you can never know when you're going to have a career change. You dive for 30 years and now you're in film and sound. So yeah, great. Sarah, Rico, would you like to? Sarah?
Yeah, sure. I think that's one of the reasons I started my own company, because I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere else. And part of the reason I was an actor as well, and what I liked about being an actor, is I was always being someone else. In a way, it's a form of masking and going out there and I'm saying someone else's words. But then at the same time, for me, one of the reasons I stopped was because I was getting sent scripts and things that didn't resonate with me. So I think if you're worried about not fitting in and you're creative, I say just go for it and create your own stuff in whatever form that is. It will get found, whether you're posting stuff on socials or just putting your stuff out there and being brave enough to do it, because it is a big step to do that. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I think, I agree with everything that's been said, but I also feel like authenticity is way more important than fitting in. And I think I also feel like there's a strength in authenticity, because you attract the kind of people you actually want to be around. And the film industry is so much about your connections as it is about the kind of organizations you're in or the kind of productions you've been on. I mean, I used to want to fit in all the time, and I found that I was masking in all spaces, and ultimately found myself in a lot of positions that I didn't actually want to be in. And when I started to be authentically myself, I realized I was attracting the kind of people that I genuinely got on it with, and then my days became more joyful. I started to engage with people that I actually wanted to engage with. So I think there's a strength in there's a strength in not fitting in. I think difference and individuality is celebrated in a way that it probably hasn't been in the past. But I also feel like by being authentically yourself, you do attract the people that you want to have sustained careers with.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to keep moving on so we can get as many questions answered before we move to our student Q&A. This next one is a really good one. So have you received any support during your time working in the screen industries? And what support is there for those that, might be deaf, disabled, neurodivergent, and want some extra support? Anyone want to go first? Rico.
So I have received my biggest bit of support was getting my first job in the industry, and it was from an organisation called the Independent Cinema Office. It was unfortunately titled Feds, but it stood for film exhibition distribution and sales, and that allowed me in Birmingham, in a place that had no kind of, other than BBC's Doctors, no film production. It allowed me to get my first job in programming. So it was it's for people who have experienced significant barriers, or specifically people from working class and low income, disabled, and Black and Globe majority backgrounds. And it gave me an 8-month placement at my local film festival as the kind of programming trainee. And from that, I learned all the skills I needed to build my own festival. So when I left there, I kind of built my own festival, and that really kickstarted my career in film. I also have received support from a lot of different organizations, but in terms of organizations that I really think are doing the work, I would say Creative Access. I really support Creative Access. They are kind of a powerhouse for helping underrepresented talent into the industry, and also kind of paid the price for it. So they were taken to court because of positive discrimination. It was a case around positive discrimination, and they won that case, so they can't be tried for it again. So they're going to be sustained and helping historically marginalized people get into the industry. Screen Skills, Independent Cinema Office, Film and TV Charity. I hope that we are part of that mix as well, but I don't want to inflate my own sense of ego. BFI Film Academy, Mummy Youth, all really great organizations. So I really do think that more so in the last 5 years, but I think that organizations are starting to wake up to the social model of disability, where it's not it's not a disabled person that's inherently disabled, it's society that disables a person. And I think organizations are now starting to do the work to make sure that they as organizations are responsible for the fact that anyone coming through their door should feel welcome. Anyone coming through their door should have their reasonable adjustments, should have everything they need to be able to succeed.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. As you guys mentioned, companies and things, I'll write them down and make sure links and things are included within our feedback email. Sarah, I think you put up this one. Would you like to go next?
Sure, yeah. I've received support. I was on a mentorship scheme, which was great. That was for women in film and television, where I had a film director and a TV director who mentored me coming into the industry in that way. So that was brilliant. Creative UK, BFI. BFI took a group of disabled filmmakers. I was one of them to Rotterdam this year to the festival. And that was fantastic. So we got to pitch our debut features over there. Film and TV Charity, like Rico mentioned, have been really supportive of me because I have caring responsibilities as well. I've been a mum my entire adult life. I'm a grandma too, and all of this. So they really help with the kind of holistic approach and support in that way in people's welfare who work in the industry. I think I don't want to go on to other answers for different questions, but I think there is support out there, and there are groups such as DANC, the Disabled Artists Networking Community, the Neurodiversity Media Community, who are on Facebook, DDPTV on Facebook, who all support entry level people coming into the industry who identify as deaf, disabled, and/or neurodivergent.
Perfect. I hope I got as many of those down as possible. A lot were mentioned. Do you have any other ones to add, Jess, or shall I move on to our next question? We do have about 5 minutes left before we have to move to our student questions.
No, I think I was just going to, I think you've listed them all. I was supported by DANC CCC, who did the RISE mentorship scheme, which was phenomenal. And I think mentors are really an amazing part of our industry and how a lot of us evolve, develop and move forward. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay, great. Our next question then is, what changes would you like to see, big question, in the industry and in terms of inclusion and diversity?
If you'd asked me this question 3 months ago, then I would have probably had less things that needed to change, because things were going on in a great direction. The past couple of months, things have started to change. So I've noticed recently with my actors in particular, we are just having a lot of companies not wanting to meet access requirements for auditions. And it's something that we're having to fight against all the time, where we shouldn't be. I'm talking like step 3, I'm talking like bigger font for paper, and yeah, lots of things. And I've seen a rise in ableism, and I think maybe it's the current climate of everything around disability at the moment, but it's really disheartening. So I think just people implementing access from the very beginning. So if you are inviting someone to an audition or meeting, just please share any access requirements you may have, and opening up that conversation to take the onus off of disabled people. Because when someone does that to me and I don't actually have to come forward with my access needs, I feel, oh, okay, oh, this is great. Well, they should be great. It should just be the way it is. But you feel like, oh, okay, they're willing to talk about access. And I think there's still a really wide gap. And again, this is through the talent agency, where we have commissioners, and there's a TV Access project, which is fantastic, and the work that they're doing. And the commissioners say that there's unlimited budget access. But when we are dealing with the actual production companies that have been commissioned, they very rarely, and this is across all the broadcasters that we've worked with, know about an access budget and know what's available to them. And we've had actors recast very last minute, at contract stage even. So I think there's still a lot that needs to be done around the communication of it and just implementing it. And access coordinators like Jess, just having them on every project, and TV can afford that, and big films can afford that, and it just being a thing. We had COVID supervisors go up super quick during COVID, and that was a role that was paid. Why can't we just have that as a thing for access? And yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that's a really good point. And I think something, not just in the screen industries, but every industry should consider that putting it at the bottom of an email is not actually that difficult to do, just to check in. So, yeah. Jess, I guess you would like to talk on this one as well?
Yeah, I guess echoing what Sarah was saying, I think it's about change in general needs to come from the top. And again, I've already said this, I think we need far more diversity at the top. I think we're an industry that likes to feel like they're diverse, but it tends to be at the bottom. And I think that really needs to be flipped on its head for us to make true, meaningful change. Access coordinators and consultants are like a key part to that. And they are the ones that end up informing production companies of what Sarah was saying. Access budgets are available, and I'm sort of encouraging them to use it, and this is what we're here for, to support that. And that also needs to get further than just, scripted content. I recently was hired to access consult on the outside broadcast of the Isle of Wight Festival, which is incredible because it was nothing to do with drama. And I think that is really, really important, is to see that this affects every facet of our lives, but also our industry. It at the moment, it's very heavily focused on anything that is scripted, but unscripted world is full of amazing, talented people that are deaf, disabled and neurodiverse. So, we really need to broaden that far more, and that reach really needs to embed, even from what Sarah was saying at the beginning of her journey, news, very simple, news and sport. We need to see more of those inclusivity things off screen, not just talking about it on screen. So yeah, I won't go on too much.
That's one of those topics, people get really passionate, and it's what we need more of. Jack, do you have anything else to add?
No, I'd just like to thank Sarah just for echoing all of those, because I was about to go on those as well, because it's very true. Like, opening that conversation is where it all needs to start, but also broadening the message that those conversations can be had, because I feel like I don't hear about enough going on, and that these conversations should be happening more and should be made, to a broader audience, to be able to know that it's accessible, because there's still so many things I found out that I didn't know were accessible, or still don't know are accessible. And that's why I've also recently been really enjoying working with Interfilm about being able to go to schools and expressing that message to schools who I know where I grew up did not have that message, passed on to them. And I think it's great that that's happening, but it needs to be happening more.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? And it's one of the things that we love when speakers give their time to go into schools and talk and deliver. Obviously, this is online, so thank you for all joining online today and talking with us. But particularly going into schools as well has such a great impact. So that's the end of our formal panel. We're going to move on to the student questions because we've had a couple that have been submitted to us, and we'd love to get those answered if we can in the last 10 minutes before we have to look at closing down. So I've had a question here that's come in from Queen Mary's College, and they've asked, how do you think young creatives should go about explaining their neurodiversity when first applying for or landing roles, when we still live in a society that will make instant judgments about what that might mean and might hinder their chances of success in the industry? So this is sort of linking to the question we've just asked, which is a great one to lead on from. But it can be scary putting yourself forward and saying, I am, and hoping that that's not going. I know there's rules in place, but it's still a scary thing to do. Rika?
No, I was sorry, Jack.
No, it's okay. I don't think I was going to say because I don't feel like I've been in the industry as long as you guys have, but I feel like I'm only recently being okay admitting to other people about my neurodivergency, and I still sometimes not sure how to say it. So I thought I'd start off with that, if that's okay, just by saying that I'm choosing not to say it and hoping that it doesn't become noticeable, because I'd like people not to have to then treat me differently if I say it. But I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because I'm still trying to figure that out. So but that's all I have to say on the matter, because I don't really know how to answer that question otherwise.
That's fair. I think it's a difficult one. I think what I would like to say is on kind of industry side, company side, and corporate side, you don't have to disclose it at an interview if you don't want to, and then after you've been hired, you have to be reasonable adjustments have to be made for you. So if they fire you on the basis of your disability or your needs, then it's illegal and you can just sue them and get lots of money anyway. So but when it's production, it's a little bit harder, it's a little bit more contentious. I would say that the thing that I've seen work the most, I'm going to give you the real answer and not necessarily the aspirational answer, because I don't think it's right, but the thing that I think works the most is when you have needs, go into a meeting with your hiring manager or kind of the person that's going to be managing you and saying, these are my needs, these are what I need for accommodations, I can do all of the work to get these, so it's going to be no extra labor to you. It kind of makes them just think it's a little bit easier, and it will help. I don't think that's what should happen. I think it should be the responsibility of productions to have an access coordinator on set. It should be the responsibility of productions to value difference and do the work to be able to make sure that's accommodated. I can't in good faith say that always happens. So yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Rico's saying. It's really hard to say it and just exactly that. You don't have to ever disclose it if you don't want to. It's nobody's business. But yeah, asking for reasonable adjustments. But I have seen it where people don't get the job because they have disclosed, and it's disgusting. And there's often no way of proving that is the reason why they didn't get the job, but you just know that is. I think having someone who is an advocate for you within the industry, again, not always easy to find, but if you do have agent representation who can do that fighting. So as an agent, I am very much matter of fact about it. It's like, okay, this is what my client needs, not asking, or please, could you do this? Is this okay? And yeah, I'd say it nicely, but it's still, it's just trying to make it like, this is how things are and this is how it should be. And we're making it a level playing field for everybody. But I didn't disclose for a long time. It's fairly recently having, the platform that I have now with my company, where it's obvious that this is what's going on. I can do it. So yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer to it, really.
Yeah, I was the same as Sarah. I didn't disclose for an incredibly long time, and I really struggled actually not being able to actually have any support. Obviously, for those who don't know what an access coordinator does, they are there to have those conversations, not so that you don't have to have those conversations with somebody that is hiring you. Imagine that it's a third party, a bit like HR, but they aren't HR as such. But they are there to advocate and to fight for those adjustments for you. And it isn't always easy. I'm not going to pretend it is an easy job to do, because you are battling with people that have preconceived ideas, biases. Those things do exist, and that's why we are here to help affect that change. I would say that some things, and I'm very happy to share a resource of what an access passport or an access rider looks like, that developing one of those for yourself is great, because what it does is it outlines, you don't even have to say what it is. You don't have to say, this is my disability. You just have to say, these are my reasonable adjustments that help me perform my job to the best of my ability. There's an alternative I've also seen, which is what it's like to work with me. And it just outlines perhaps if that person is autistic and they don't respond to eye contact very well, or they perhaps, for example, me, people used to walk into the office and be like, why is Jess lying on the floor? Well, my blood pressure drops at the drop of a hat. So sometimes I'd be lying on the floor doing emails on my phone on the floor. That's just the reality of working with me. But that doesn't make me any different to working with anybody else. That's just something that you can know. And those are things that sometimes help put people at ease. But I would say, unless you are going into perhaps a company that says they are a disability confident company, and even then we do still have big problems, I would say disclose after you get the job. And that is not something I would like to say, but I think that is unfortunately still the reality we are in. And going back to Rico's point, then you are able to use the grounds of, I require reasonable adjustments on a legal ground. That is a legal requirement for them to provide you. And then if they do not, you need to keep record of them not doing that. And, they have to provide justification as to why not. So that's, unfortunately, it's not an ideal solution at all. But I think that is the best way. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anyone else to add? We have a couple of other questions that have come in. So. Great. Hopefully we've got two more questions. We can get them in before the end of our time. So very quickly, a lovely formal question that's come in from Alberton Community School. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And they have asked, I would like to ask about directorial advice as well as script writing, as I aspire to be one when older. Furthermore, will there be any support provided after the webinar for work experience placements? Now, I know there won't be any work experience from you guys, but it's always worth keeping an eye out on our Speakers for Schools website, as we do provide work experiences, and it's often we do have those within the screen industry. So I'll include links and all of the companies that we mentioned today in the email afterwards. So let's focus on the first half of that, if anyone would like to give any director or script writing advice. Rika.
I can give you like an overview of for film. I can't give you an overview for TV, but I think the most common way that I see people as independent filmmakers go into the industry start to cut their teeth by making their own self-funded or kind of free content, just trying to get what their vision is. Then maybe applying for a BFI short film fund. It's called BFI Network. Trying to get access to BFI Network, making 3 short films. Your kind of short film should already kind of tie into each other, because when you start to do early development, you'll find it easier to get early development for your first feature if there's a common theme for your shorts. If you've made one romantic comedy, one horror, and one thriller, then when you go into early development for a romantic comedy, they're going to be like, well, there's no consistency across your work, so why would you risk putting £1 or £2 or £3 million into your feature work when we can't say that it's going to be a success? That is the kind of the way that the industry works. Early development also happens for the BFI. You can get onto programs as a writer for the BBC Writers. There are programs that exist, but largely our industry independently is run by public funding bodies, and whilst you don't need a public funding body to make a film or content, you'll often find it's easier to get distribution when there's a public funding body attached to your project. So I would say there is no organizational path, especially with studios, to write as a director producer, and that's largely because the studios use below the line talent here. They use the UK as kind of a service provider, so largely the writer, producer, director will come from the US. Sometimes the producer will come from the UK. They'll fly them over and then they'll crew up everyone below the line. So because of that, studios aren't really investing in a significant way in UK writers, producers, directors. That might change with the introduction of the new independent tax credit, because studios will want to get involved in the tax incentive that comes with that, which means, and that comes with the addendum that has to be a UK writer, producer, or director. So that might cause a shift in the industry. But currently, from my experiences, and this is just my experiences, I don't see that same level of support that we see below the line with above the line talent, writers, directors, and producers. And I think one of the only ways that I've personally seen people break into the industry is going through that kind of shorts into features route.
Yeah. Sarah.
Yeah, exactly what Rico says again. And just, yeah, go out and make stuff. You all have phones. You've all got like cameras on there. Most of you will have phones, and just get out there and shoot stuff and edit it and make it, even if it's just like a 1 minute thing. My next actually short film that I'm making is a 1 minute micro short. Just, we're not shooting on a phone, but you can do that. And just getting it out there. Like the Duplass brothers, they made a short film that went to Sundance. They just made it in like their living room with a phone, and it was a one location thing. One brother acted in it, one directed it, and you know, their careers took off. So it doesn't always happen that way, but if you can make short films and you can enter them into festivals, so getting them into festivals is a way to get seen. And then I've never been BFI funded for a film, but I've been in BFA, Oscar, BAFTA qualifying festivals. There are other ways to do it, but they obviously do have the monopoly on it, and they do have the money to get you, and you get your stuff seen as well by a big audience. I was going to say something else and it's totally gone out of my head. But screenwriting wise, if you don't have software currently, Celtx do a free one. It's CELTX, and I started on Celtx. If you're a Mac owner, Highland has a free version, and Highland's amazing. So you don't have to pay for software for screenwriting. And I would suggest listening to podcasts, because that really helped me when I started as a writer-director. I'm talking fast because I know we haven't got much time, but the Directors Take podcast for directors is brilliant. The DGA, which is Directors Guild of America, Directors UK do a podcast. And then for screenwriting, the Screenwriting Life, and Script Notes. One of the writers for The Last of Us does Script Notes, and it's it's brilliant for everything screenwriting. So yeah.
Okay, Jack, then as our final one before we move towards the end of the session.
Just anything, if it's like you're just starting out and wondering where to start, I'd say just start with just pen and paper and just writing down the ideas that you got down, just writing them down, even if they don't make sense. As long as they make sense to you and you're just writing the ideas, even if they keep going and keep going. I still have ideas that I wrote since the age of 10. I've kept them and eventually turned them into a script. But don't worry about trying to make the script perfect at the beginning. If you don't know how to format it, just get the ideas out first, and then try and formulate it into a script idea. And then, as Sarah was saying, like, you know, if you've got a phone or an iPad, just go out there and start shooting it. Even if you're not sure what it is to shoot, just shoot anything that is in relation to what you've written down. And then eventually you'll find that you get into a pattern of creating like your story. And then, yeah, and if you want, apply for funding. But again, I would say don't let that be the be all of end all, because I've never had any of my stories funded. So like I say, just go out and make them for their money and find people to do it with me, because you can do that as well.
Yeah, love it. I like that sort of nice way to sort of finish off. So thank you for asking that question. I'm going to change it up as we say goodbye quickly in our last couple of minutes. Rather than asking you a couple of words, we've had a question that's, what's something you wish you had been told at 16? So as we say goodbye, each of you, if you could answer that question. Let's start with Sarah then. What's something you wish you'd been told at 16?
Okay, to keep it brief, it is a journey, not a destination. I always thought, I have to get to this point in my career, I have to get there. But actually, the journey's been really fun and enjoyable. And I just wish I'd enjoyed it a bit more at times. So yeah, enjoy the journey.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. It's been wonderful having you on as part of our panel.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Next then, Rico, what's something you wish you'd been told at 16?
Sure. I think, sorry, I'm going to break the rules and do two, because I think the first thing is that finding my purpose was going to be the most important thing that I did. I think, and that's because sorry, just trying to order my thoughts here. I think consistency is the biggest thing you can bring to the industry, but I don't want to say consistency in kind of always showing up at the same level, because that's ableist. I mean, consistency isn't always working towards a common goal. So you're always working towards a goal or aspiration that you want to do, and people see you do that, and that's really powerful. I didn't know that was a thing. So when I kind of like was 16, I was just like, oh, okay, I need to do this strategic thing, or I need to move in this direction. When actually, no matter what I did, if I was always doing it with the intention of getting to my goal, it would basically help me build the career that I wanted. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's my advice to myself.
Thank you so much for your piece of advice, and what a nice way to finish. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great having you.
Okay.
All right, we're almost there. So Jess, would you like to let us know what piece of advice you would have liked to heard at 16?
Mine's quite straightforward, which is ask for help. I think one of the things we are terrible at doing in general as a society is not being great at asking for help. It's almost like that is a weakness. And actually asking for help, asking for advice, asking if there's an opportunity. I think asking those questions are actually key for us to moving on in what we're doing. We cannot do any of what happens in TV and film on our own. We have to have the backing of other people, the support of other people, other people's insights. So finding those people that you admire, that you aspire to be, even if you've got your first job, and buying them a cup of coffee and saying, can I ask you a couple of questions? Can I ask you some advice, some thoughts? Those are the moments where you will have your eyes open the most, especially when you think someone's probably had a really easy journey. They probably haven't. It's not probably as simple as perhaps it looks on paper or in an interview. Those are where you get some true insights, some true learnings, and often some real opportunities.
Thank you for joining us. All right, Jack, then same question to you.
Yeah, I would just like to, first thing is, it is possible. I wish I'd been told that. Don't give up, and slow and steady wins the race. Don't expect it to happen all at once, because things will happen, things will change. Just as long as you keep it slow and steady, because you'll get there eventually, because you'll win. Because again, things may change that you don't expect, and that is actually a very good thing. Because yeah.
All right, thank you so much. It's been great having you on as a panelist, Jack. So
thank you very much.
All right, that's all we have time for now. If you're still here, please do let us know how you found today's session through the feedback poll, and if not, all resources and feedback links will be shared shortly via email, so do keep an eye out for that. That's it for now, and hopefully we'll see you next time.